Hi there everyone, my name's Dave West, I hope we're all doing well. So welcome back to the Ultimate Video Test, and today I'm checking out the OnePlus 9 Pro. So as with all Ultimate Video Tests, I'll leave all of the main camera specifications down in the description, and I'll just run through some of the high level features throughout this video to help save you some time. Now for ease of watching the video, I've put some time codes down in the description, or you can click on the chapters at the bottom of the screen so you can skip to the part of video that you want. There's quite a lot to go through in this video, so I've put the time code there so you can skip to the bit that perhaps you're most interested in. And now to stop the gimbal police coming after me, I am just using a very cheap £5 hand grip from Amazon to keep the phone at arm's length. And that's basically just to give a little disclaimer, because I have been called out and accused of using a gimbal when I'm not. Everything you see in this video is all stabilised by the handset. So we're starting off then with the front-facing camera, and this is a 16 megapixel fixed focus camera, and it can record video at up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. It has auto HDR, stereo sound recording, and it uses electronic image stabilization, which is permanently switched on for video purposes. Now, as far as camera evolution goes, I'm a little disappointed to find that this is still the same Sony IMX471 selfie camera, which is found in both the OnePlus 8 Pro and the OnePlus 7 Pro. It was not a bad lens by any means, but if you think of it in the context of its competition, I think OnePlus could have made the effort and perhaps bumped this up to a little bit bigger sensor so you could at least get 4K video from the front camera. What we do have is fairly decent video. It does struggle a little bit with exposure sometimes, so if I move the camera around, you will find sometimes that the image looks a little bit washed out, and it can sometimes struggle with automatic exposure and highlights, so some bits do look a little bit blown out. The one thing OnePlus have really improved this year, in my opinion, is the microphones on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Last year's 8 Pro was a step in the right direction, but the OnePlus 9 Pro has a noticeably better bitrate and nice smooth audio if it's a little bit quieter than perhaps I would have liked. So let's just check out the electronic image stabilization with a little run. Now, as with the OnePlus 8 Pro, the OnePlus 9 Pro also has a 21:9 option for the front-facing camera video. Now, it is super cropped in. It's not really like a proper 21:9 ratio. They just crop the video to fill the entire screen. Now, if you can get the phone far enough away from you, it looks pretty decent, but I'm not so sure that a lot of people are going to use this. But it's nice to have the option if you want a more cinematic kind of look to the video. But I just thought I'd show you really quickly so you can see what this looks like. Okay, so on the rear cameras then, we're going to start off at 1080p at 30 frames per second. And I'll cycle through all the different cameras so you can see how it looks and how the scene may change for color consistency. Now, the ultra-wide angle lens is a 50 megapixel camera, and this can record at up to 8K at 30 frames per second. And for 1080p and 4K, it can record up to 60 frames per second. And electronic image stabilization is employed across the entire camera setup, regardless of what resolution you're recording in. Now, this uses what OnePlus calls DOL-HDR, and this is automatically on at all times, so you don't have to actually go in and select it anymore. And you also benefit from the stereo sound recording as well, which has had a bump up in bitrate. It's also much smoother sounding, less sort of tinny compared to the OnePlus 8 Pro. But you let me know what you think of the audio recording and the image quality using the ultra-wide angle camera. Now, you can switch through the lenses when recording. So this is the main lens, and this is a 48 megapixel custom made Sony IMX789 sensor. It's made especially for OnePlus, so they tell us. And you also get this nice animation when switching between the cameras. It's not the smoothest I've seen. It looks a bit stop motion animation sometimes, but it is nice to have the function if you need. Alright, so this is 1080 at 60 frames per second then. Again, this is always requested in the comment section, so I thought I would include it for the benefit of those who may want to see this resolution and what it looks like. One interesting thing to note is, like the OnePlus 8 Pro, this uses the Ozo audio recording. So when you actually zoom in, granted these wind turbines aren't actually switched on, looks like someone hasn't paid the electric bill. But as you zoom in, the audio is actually increased and lifts the volume for further away subjects. So there is 1080p at 30 and 60 frames per second on all of the different lenses. So this is the ultra wide, that is the standard camera, and this is the telephoto camera, and this is an 8 megapixel telephoto camera, and this also records up to 4K at 60, but stops short of 8K. Alright, so this is 4K at 30 frames per second then. Now this is with the ultra wide angle camera, and as per 1080p you get electronic stabilization, stereo sound recording, DOL-HDR, and you can switch automatically between each of the cameras. So I can move to the main 48 megapixel camera, and then I can go 2 times zoom with the telephoto camera, and I can also pinch to zoom, and that gives us a maximum of 10 times zoom. So it's 2 times optical, 8 times further digital. As you can see, the image quality is pretty pants, and every movement is super exaggerated. But you've got the option there if you really need to, if you really want to see that far into the distance, and then you can pinch to zoom all the way back to the ultra wide camera. And using the ultra wide camera allows you to give a much more expanded view, so you can get these kind of shots here. And the electronic stabilization does a great job, as with all OnePlus phones, of stabilizing the footage nicely on the fly, which is great. Okay, so this is 4K at 60 frames per second, and this is the ultra wide angle lens, and then we can switch to the main camera. At 4K 60, there's a noticeable drop in the quality from the telephoto camera. You can only do a max of 2 times optical zoom, and only up to a max of 8 times digital zoom, which, as you can see, doesn't look very clever at all. But hopefully with the DOL-HDR at work, it allows to expose the whole scene a lot more evenly than perhaps if it didn't have it. One thing you probably have noticed is that the difference between the ultra wide and the main camera isn't really that big. That's because of the crop which is created from using the electronic image stabilization. So that is 4K at 60 frames per second. You let me know what you think of the overall image quality you have seen so far. Alright, so while we're stood here, let's check out the autofocus. And the new IMX789 has a super quick and nice smooth lock on the subject. Even when you start to pull away as far as my arm can go, and then it smoothly transitions to the background. And you can get nice and close to the subject, which is great. Alright, so returning from the OnePlus 8 series is video portrait mode. Now this records at 1080p at 30 frames per second. What it essentially does is it does the portrait cutting out in software. Now the results are a little bit hit and miss sometimes, but when it really gets the effect right, it does look pretty good in my opinion. Now one thing you need to know is when you use this mode, I have noticed the handset does heat up quite a lot because it's obviously doing quite a lot of processing to get this sort of cut out around me and blur out the background. But it's a nice addition if you've got a relatively slow moving subject, then I suppose you could get a really good effect from using this video. Okay, so another feature returning from way back from the OnePlus 7 Pro, remember that, is super stable video mode. So what this does, it uses the ultra wide angle camera. It records up to 4K at 30 frames per second, and it kind of crops in just a little bit, and then the areas you can't see are used to super stabilize the video. Now I think the electronic stabilization in the other modes is good enough for you not really to have to use this. However, if you are a fast moving sporty type unlike me, then you might find some value from this feature. So if I go for a run, you should be able to see that it keeps more of the center of the image stabilized than what it does with the standard video mode. But you let me know what you think of the super stable video mode. Okay, so also returning from the OnePlus 8 series is the 21:9 video, which you can use with the rear camera and also the front. Now with the rear camera, you can record up to 4K at 60 FPS. So this is using the ultra wide angle camera. And I think this is the best fit for this mode, because if you use the main camera, it does feel like you're a bit squished in and everything is like really close to you because of the crop that's being used to get this cinematic effect. But I think using the ultra wide camera does give you the best use case for this cinematic style video with the black bars top and bottom, and as you can see you get the electronic stabilization in this mode as well. Alright, so the final video mode available on the OnePlus 9 Pro is 8K at 30 frames per second. Now I'm just showing you it as like a selfie kind of vlog camera, Alright, so the final mode available is 8K at 30 frames per second. Now, I wanted to show you it in kind of vlog mode, just for those of you who might find it handy to use the 8K mode in this way. Now, it's pretty impressive. I'm not sure if it's real 8K. It might well be upscaled 5 or 6K, but we'll actually never know. But it does look really decent. And you can use the ultra wide and the main camera, although I would recommend probably just use the ultra wide camera because it is quite cropped in when using the main camera. But you do get electronic image stabilization, And I would imagine the Snapdragon 888 processor is probably working like crazy to deliver this 8K video stabilized at the same time. And it's pretty good, to be honest. It's nice to have this option. But you let me know what you think of the 8K video vlog style from the OnePlus 9 Pro. Alright, so this is 8K then, showing you scenery instead of my face. So just to remind you, this only works on the main rear and ultra-wide cameras. But hopefully this will give you an idea of the resolution, colours and general exposure of the image. And in this mode you can capture 8K stills. This is nothing new. You can also do this on the Samsung handsets as well, but it's really good to be able to capture these really high resolution photos from video. Now with 8K mode you can't switch cameras whilst recording. You have to stop the video and then start recording again. Now on the main camera you can use some sort of digital zoom in 8K, and once again you can use the capture button. So the digital zoom allows you to go up to 8 times magnification. Now you can see that the magnification, because it's digital, the quality of the video does suffer. You see everything's very smeared and you've just lost lots of detail. Right, see, around about 2 times I think is fairly useful, because you still get a decent amount of quality. You let me know what you think of the 8K video from both the main and the ultra wide angle cameras. Alright, so that's the end then of the OnePlus 9 Pro Ultimate video test. Hope you've enjoyed this extensive walkthrough of all the video modes on this brand new OnePlus handset. But as always, you let me know what you think of the video quality down in the comments. Do you think it's a step up and worth a go over the already excellent OnePlus 8 Pro? As always, if you've got any comments or questions, please leave those down in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And don't forget, if you're new around here, then please do consider subscribing so you don't miss more videos like this coming on the channel very, very soon. But for now, this has been my OnePlus 9 Pro Ultimate video test. My name's Dave West, and I'll catch you guys later.